go around the room and just introduce ourselves. Jennifer?
Jennifer Gossick, City Clerk.
Matt Zacher, Alderman, District 3, Chair of Finance and Property Committee.
Tom Rayom, District 4, member of the Legislative Committee.
Jake Catnaugh, District 5, Alderman.
Dennis Pollock, Alderman, District 6.
Patrick Delaney, District 7, Alderman.
Jay Bemke, Committee Member.
Sue Shell, City Attorney.
Shane Blazer, Mayor.
Thank you. Item number 2, item number 1, we'll call the meeting to order. Item number 2 at 5:19. Item number 2, consider a rule which would require all supporting materials for items brought before the council be provided to alderpersons at least 2 business days before council meeting. I believe, Patrick, this is your referral, so if you'd like to start.
Sure. This referral was made December 22nd of last year, and if you look at our items, it's kind of in reverse order as to when they were made, as to which one is which. This item kind of goes along with the next agenda item, in that we need this or something similar to this to make the process at 2 meetings per month run more efficiently. Although this item alone is sorely needed, even if the next item agenda is not passed. Common Council aldermans have the obligation to do their due diligence before voting on items. Last-minute paperwork given out at the meetings makes this task impossible. No additional paperwork, videos, or presentations should be allowed at the meeting if not first presented to all alderpersons at least 2 business days before the meeting is held. I would like somebody to motion to create a council rule that all alderpersons will receive any and all information presented at the meetings at least 2 business days before the meeting is held. No additional paperwork, videos, or presentations will be accepted, viewed, or heard without proper advance notice. And if we do go to 2 meetings a month, it's not like you're kicking it out another month. You're just a couple weeks down the road.
Let's give the committee a chance. Matt or Tom first. Comments, questions? Jake?
I just have a clarifying question. Is this in relation to staff bringing items, or, for example, if I was to give a presentation, would you guys want a copy of the PowerPoint 2 days before? Like, how reaching is this rule? For everybody that's in this government, or are we talking information from staff?
Well, I would like to have all information, because, I mean, you might have a great presentation that you put together, and if I can view it and maybe I have a question about it or something that you missed, I mean, I miss stuff all the time, and I'm not perfect. I make a lot of mistakes. And if somebody else could, like, look it over, I mean, especially a group of 8 people, and say, hey, you made a mistake here, or this could be done a little better that way, I think that would be beneficial. You know how it is during council when you get
Yep.
a packet and you have to read through it or vote. You're supposed to vote on it, but you haven't even, this is the first time you've seen it, just before the meeting. And sometimes they build up, and it's more reading and it's not just reading, you actually have to digest it. So that's where this is coming from.
Thank you. No, I 100% agree. It definitely would be helpful versus the come around and get dropped a piece of paper on something you're voting on that evening. I don't think I have any further questions on this. I just wanted to clarify. And one more question. So let's say myself as an alder person comes across some information on an item that we're going to be voting on in a day or that evening. What would be the proper way to share that information then? Do I withhold it and then just speak to it, or this would be only in the case where I'm looking into a meeting and I come across something, I think everybody should see it or know it, whether it's a graph or some type of document?
Mayor?
You could always email to the clerk or to myself and then we could forward it on to the council so we can try to avoid having a walking quorum. But I know alderpersons have done that in the past where they've sent them to the clerk and she's disseminated that information out.
Yeah, I just mean within with the 2-day rule applying, like if I were to come across something past that, or the day before, the evening or the afternoon before an evening meeting, what would be the proper course of action there? Just speak to it, or and not distribute information, or because it seems like an absolute rule, and I agree with it. I definitely support it, but I want to make sure that going forward, if I am bringing something, that I'm following the rule if it's enacted.
I think that you could always, during discussion, when we're discussing something, that you can discuss it, right? Like say, hey, I found this, whatever, this morning. Somebody sent me this email that contains this information that I didn't know before that would be useful. I think council rules, they should be kept, but I think Sue will agree that they're not like hard and fast rules. Like they're not always followed.
Well, that's my question, I guess, is if I do get an email from a business or a resident the day before and it's lengthy and I think a copy should be distributed and I want to send it to the clerk, like, is there a way to waive the rules or for that particular item, or how would that work?
Mayor, go ahead.
I guess I also have a question then. The committee meetings held before council, such as maybe a public works meeting to discuss bids that were opened up, would that include that? So there'd be no pre-meetings before council?
Okay, so that kind of goes into the next line item, if we have working councils. And this would help those council meetings go more smoothly so that everybody they have the information ahead of time, they can read it, digest it, and then move on from there. And if something comes up last minute and we do have to kick it out, we're not kicking it out another month. And then if it gets discussed again, it's not going to be another month. It's just going to be a couple weeks down the road.
Matt?
I'm in support of this for sure. More than, I don't know, 20 times I feel like I'm kind of lost because things are handed to me too quickly and I'm not a fast enough thinker to be able to ask all the questions that I have to, come up with in that short amount of time to figure things out. So I would appreciate the 2 days. So what if they don't? So if there's something we're voting on, it's on the agenda, and we got the agenda in a timely manner so we can look it all over, and they do get something the day of, do we want that material, or are we saying,
I say just kick it down the road a couple weeks to the next meeting.
oh, you're saying, okay, so if it's on the agenda and there is more information, then give us the time to process the information instead of, so table it till the next one, which will be, okay. See, I can't always keep up with what everybody's saying, but I do like that idea. If we can table it till the next one, I agree with that.
So I'd like to point out a couple. One is we already have that ability. I'm sorry, Tom.
No, go ahead.
We can already table things or send them back to committees. We already have that ability. My fear is especially if we get things that are kind of time sensitive, that we're bound by this now. I think we have some flexibility, and I do agree with Patrick and Matt. It's tough when you get things at night, but we already have that ability, and I don't know if we want to tie ourselves to a 2-day thing. And I also agree that if this is going to work, I would think we have to have the discussion about number 3 before we talk about this or vote on this. I think those two kind of go hand in hand. So, Tom?
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, and as we're set up right now, with committee meetings and that is basically where the discussion about an item takes place. Disregarding a last-minute crucial thing that pops up or something has to be done, a bid opening or something, that to be decided too. But, you know, the committee meeting's basically where, for the committee, is to make a decision. Information's supposed to be provided and whatnot, so the committee should have information prior to the meeting, and then listen to those that may appear to testify, to provide, lend their input into what they think, or other members of the council or whoever would be attending to lend their input at the committee meeting. Really, when we get to the council meeting, other than extraordinary, something that may come up if we would go that route, is that, you know, all the information and whatnot should have taken place at the committee, and it comes to the council, becomes the council to make a decision on what if they agree with or don't agree with what the committee did, to discuss what took place. In one sense, in that I know we have let people talk at the council meetings, but really we don't have to. It's the mayor and the council's meeting, and that should be, you know, if there's some brand new information that somebody has, if they want to lend something to that, if we wanted to listen to that, we could. Or again, then it'd be if you wanted to wait a couple weeks and go over that, you could do that too, to postpone it. So I just, I think as we're set up with the council meeting, or the committee meetings and that we should be getting the information really before the council, before the committee meetings meet, and I think in a lot of cases we are, to go over them, and then, you know, it'd be presented at the committee meeting, so you get to, you know, talk about it and that, but to see what actually, you know, you can see what's on the agenda, but if you can get the information, what it's all entailing, is helpful beforehand. So I just, I think so. I think as we are now, I think somewhat, and Jay alludes to, or Patrick has too, I guess, with the next item, they kind of go together or whatever. But so I'm speaking on behalf of how it is now. So that's why I'm speaking, for the committees to do their due diligence, to have the information and not have something just dropped in their lap that evening to, well, here it is, you know, for the committee to do. So hopefully they could get the information in a packet of whatever type ahead of time of all the information. So I guess for that, in this, that we're talking about this item, that's all I have for that, really.
Thank you. I think, again, we already have the ability to hold these things over, and I guess the second thing is, and I'm thinking maybe Sue can address some of this since she's here, the only department head, or a lot of the information that we're getting is coming from outside, and we have no control over that. And some of this stuff is kind of time sensitive. So, I mean, if we've got a building project or something this time of year, you want those projects moving. Mm-hmm. So, especially under the system we have now, you've just pushed it back a month. If they don't have everything there. So with that, Sue, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I guess I was kind of thinking, like Matt was, that it was like that information would be excluded, and then you might still consider the item. But what you're saying is, if this late information comes in, then you're going to, I mean, the game plan is to then hold that over for that information and then decide it at a later time. So if a council meeting, let's say, is on a Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, then I'm assuming, you know, the packet and everything is going to be given to you has to be given to you by Friday at 6 o'clock, or else whole council meeting is going to be changed. And likewise for every other committee, if you're meeting on a Monday, it'll have to come on Thursday. In terms of just the packet information, in addition to the other things that maybe city staff are getting you, which, and you can have it where if you're going to call this a rule, that you could suspend the rule, I guess, you know, by a certain vote if you wanted to on that. But as Jay said also, you're always have that ability, if most of you desire, to hold something over if you don't have the information or didn't timely receive the information.
Anybody have anything else? Dennis, you got anything to add?
Not really. I agree that, like you say, probably item number 3, I think it's important to keep committees.
Well, we can, I think these two kind of go hand in hand, I guess, and we'll get to 3 after we finish 2, so. Jennifer?
For the most part, I think the packet items are available a couple business days beforehand. I think what, Patrick, what you might be talking about is stuff that is either wasn't included in the packet or something that staff is still working on, or a contract or something that isn't done. Is that more what you're talking about? Because for the most part, you're getting the packet information at least 2 business days ahead of time, for the most part. But I know there are things that are handed out at the meeting that didn't make the packet.
Yeah, we've been given contracts right at the meeting that we're supposed to approve, and
Right.
contracts can be lengthy
Yep.
and sometimes hard to understand. So
Yeah.
that's the main reason for this, is for items like that, yes.
Anybody else, Mayor? Don? I guess, what are the wishes of the committee? So can we hold this item to take action on this after we talk about number 3?
Sure.
Would that-
Jay,
Tom?
you know, unless something, I guess, popped out of the sky or something, basically Jennifer, you want the minutes in there on Thursday, whatever, so they can, everything be put together in the packet, put on the computer or whatever, so we have it over the weekend. So, other than if there'd be a last-minute breaking item or something, technically, I think we're doing a lot of that now.
Right. And actually, the deadline has been pushed back to Wednesday at noon now for packet items, because we're closed at noon on Friday, so I'm trying to get the packets out on Thursday. So that would take care of the 2 business day rule, but I think, again, it's the supplemental things that are, well, we'll just hand that out at council. So,
Well, and I guess since if we can suspend the rule, I don't know that we need to wait necessarily for number 3, if we have the ability to change the rule midstream, I guess. Correct, Sue?
Well, right, I would imagine it, I mean, I guess then what is the threshold to suspend the rules? I think your general ordinance council rules are, I think it's 2/3, so it could be suspend the rules by 2/3 of the members voting, probably is what you'd want to do. So yeah, it would be. With your group, it's 2/3 is the same as 3/4. But if you're talking about, it could be suspend the rules by 2/3 of the members present. It could be by 2/3 of the members of the body. It could be by 2/3 of the members voting, in case someone would abstain. So there's a lot of different ways to go with that. But yeah, you could suspend the rules.
Matt?
So, okay, so there's two different directions we're coming at now, right? So if we make the rule to say it has to be there 2 days, otherwise we don't want anything coming to us when we're sitting down at the council meeting. But then if we want to suspend the rule to accept their paperwork and read it over and put that into it, now we got to suspend the rule. Versus if we don't make the rule and people are allowed to bring stuff to the table, And then if we read what we get and we don't necessarily think we should vote on it right away, to table it, we would need to take a vote
Right.
for to table it till the next meeting, correct? We'd have to table it. What does it take to table it? 2/3 vote or something?
No, just a simple majority.
Simple majority? I guess I'm throwing it out there, like which one is more efficient and effective for, I understand totally where we're coming from and trying to eliminate some of this stuff where it's, piled on right at the last minute, but which would be a better way to do it, to say, no, it's not allowed, but we'll vote on it if we do think it's allowed, or we say it's allowed, and then we vote on it if we don't want it and we want to push it off. Follow what I'm saying? Like, which would be more efficient and effective? Anyone?
Are you finished, Matt? Sorry. Jake?
I think it's efficient and effective to have both options. So if the mayor calls and says that there's something really pressing that's not going to meet the 2-day threshold, and we as a council have the choice then to suspend the rule, we do so, we take that information in, and we still have the option to hold it over. On the other hand, if we're in a budget meeting and some financial documents get dropped in front of us before that meeting, we can choose to reject those and establish a standard that, we are going to hold strong to the 2 days. So the way I look at it is it's giving the power to the council to hold those standards of what we're going to accept and what we're not. Whereas right now, without this rule, there's nothing against just giving us the information and still asking us to vote on it or hold it over. So in this case, we can kind of pick and choose what we're going to do that with and what we're not if we go forward with this. So that's the way I look at it.
Dennis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jennifer, what works best for you? I mean, I know how busy you are when you have to get all the packets ready to go and the hours you put in, but what would you like to see that's workable?
Well, I do appreciate that question. Thank you for asking it. This is not something that, I have the deadline of Wednesday at noon now, so whatever I get by that point gets put in the packet and published. So it doesn't really affect what I do, because I think they're talking about items that are handed out at the meeting. So I don't do anything with those as far as putting it together in a packet. So it doesn't really affect what I do. Does that make sense? Yeah, but thank you.
I just have a question for Sue. Could we make this a rule where just a simple majority, it would just take a simple majority to suspend this rule?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to, let's see. Do we need to detail out how this is all going to play out? Okay. So I'd like to make a motion to make it mandatory for the 2-day, let me just get to this here. I'll read this. Require all supporting materials and items brought before council be provided to alderpersons at least 2 business days before the council meeting. And we can suspend this rule with a simple majority vote in order to accept materials within that 2 days. How'd I do?
Got it?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the same as the majority rule to hold it over. So, it's, so you're not, you know what I'm saying? Without this rule and materials come in, someone could just make a simple motion to hold it over, and a majority is going to have it hold over whether you have the rule or not, but it, but it's the presumption that this is really what you're expecting. So yeah, it'll work.
I think it'll help people get material to us in a more timely manner unless it's an emergency.
Tom, second? Or you want me to do it? I'll second it. There's a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye. Wait. Go ahead, Tom.
Oops. There. I guess the reason I didn't second it is that they somewhat, I don't know that we're really changing anything from what we got. You know, it's another rule we want to have to do. Because like I said, I think we're getting the info ahead of time. I think there are times I know we get maybe something at the last minute, but for the most part, I think is when we have those late minute meetings, isn't it? When we have a meeting the night of the council or the night before or something where there isn't time to maybe digest or even see what the minutes actually say or whatever, you know, to go over something. So it just seems like we're doing what this wants to do. I think we're doing or could do anyway.
Well, I think maybe if nothing else, it'll make everybody a little more aware of, it would be a lot easier just to get the stuff here as timely as they can, so. Anybody else have any comments before we vote? There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Move on to item number 3. Consider eliminating standing committees and having 2 council meetings per month. Patrick?
Okay, this was a referral I made back in November 11th of last year. In an attempt to streamline and bring efficiency to this local government, I've put forth the referral of having 2 working council meetings per month and eliminating all standing committees. This will help in new businesses joining our community to be able to get their building projects heard and approved in a much more timely manner. This will help current businesses who are expanding. This will help residents who want to have their voices heard on certain concerns be able to do so rapidly as opposed to the current system. This will help the council in having every member hear the same information at the same time and make their decisions based on that instead of rehashing certain line items over and over again. Also, each council member will be equal and have the same opportunity to make motions and vote on each line item. So I propose as a starting point, and I'm open to suggestions. This is just a rough thing. Number 1, all standing committees are eliminated. Number 2, meetings will be held first and third Tuesday of each month. Number 3, each department and commission will have the opportunity to present at each meeting. But, number 4, there will be a standing of first Tuesday is Public Works and Human Resources, and the third Tuesday would be Finance and Finance and any other committees we have, such as legislative or ethics or whatever, as well as Planning Commission could be on the third Tuesday. Number 5, agenda items are set by the mayor, but an item may be brought forth by the council by a majority vote through the referral process. Number 6, 6-month trial period may be discussed, and number 7, other rules and regulations can be discussed and implemented as we set this up and as we go along.
Thank you. So first of all, great referral, Patrick. You answered one of the questions I had, which was who will be setting the agenda. With that, I have a follow-up question about something you mentioned. How does the council get a majority vote to bring an agenda item if that item isn't on the agenda to vote on.
So this is where it gets a little bit tricky. Currently, like, we have a mayor that is very pro-city and he keeps going. That doesn't mean in the future we're going to have that same.
Right.
Maybe there's something that the council wants to do that the mayor absolutely doesn't want to do.
Correct.
Yeah, am I not close enough? I'm sorry. So my idea for this was, we currently have the referral process where Jennifer reads the referrals at the end. I guess we really couldn't discuss a referral, but we could, if there's a well-written referral, the council could vote if they want to hear that, and then it would be set as an agenda item on the following agenda.
So would it be an item to read in a referral at one meeting and then vote to take that up at the next meeting as a council? But the mayor would still have to put that item on the agenda. Is that correct? So-
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, we currently have the referral process where we send it to Jennifer,
Yeah, I understand.
and then at the end, she reads any new referrals that there are. And if there's something that the mayor refuses to put on the agenda, that we have a vote on just what they turn in, because that's public access. Anybody can look at that. So, public records. So I would say everybody gets a copy of what they have submitted. And if they like what they see without discussing it, just through the committee referral paperwork, that they could then say, yes, I want to do this, or no, I don't want to do this.
No, I understand what you're saying. I'm not referencing Mayor Blazer by any means, but if this were to go in action and you get a mayor in office who's not even going to put on the agenda that he's setting to read in referrals, how could we vote on it if it's not an item? So in this, would there be, that is always a standard on the agenda? Is that going to be read into the motion and then it becomes rule of council so that we do get those referrals read in, then vote on it? And 10 years from now or 5 years from now, a mayor doesn't come in and says, I'm never putting that on the agenda, so we never get the opportunity to vote on it. So I would just, if that's the route we're going to go, I would like to see that in the motion or however you proceed with that, just so we have that layer of protection from the mayor's office and they can't gatekeep what we can vote on by not putting that item on the agenda for the referrals. I hope that makes sense, but, and again, nothing, it's just protection of the council and the mayor's office for future councils and future mayors.
Yeah. I think we're talking about the same thing. I agree. But it would have to be. Yes.
Okay, Patrick, under this proposal, what happens, we've laid this out, let's say, for example, Human Resources and Public Works are the first two meetings. There's no action taken in that meeting. Can we take it up again in the second council meeting of the month, or does it have to be held for a month again? Till those two, I guess, what used to be standing committees to address those issues?
Okay, so this is streamlining it and making things more
Right.
efficient and good. So people don't have to wait month after month to put up a sign at Assumption or something like that. This would have curved that because each department and commission can be heard at each meeting. What I'm saying is standing would be typically like the first week, you would have your human resources and public works, or whatever way you guys want to do this, but have those two committees on the first one and go through that. And then on the second one, if there's still stuff left over, they could present,
Okay,
but it wouldn't be like a common, like, all the department heads don't have to come to every meeting. if they don't have a agenda item.
Okay, I think the other comment I'd like just to make is, under our current system, with our committees, with our standing committees, committees go through, do their business, and it usually gives you a week in between to digest some of this information. More questions, I mean, you see it every council meeting, more questions come up, and I think with what we just talked about on how we're going to handle these issues up with the last one, it doesn't give us that week in between. I think it takes time out for some public comment, and I don't know. I think this is something, I think the discussion is good. My personal opinion is this isn't something we should act on tonight. I have talked to several staff members, and they do have concerns. I'd like to talk to a few more and see what they think, but I guess that's all I have. Matt?
So I think what frustrates me the most with the current process is I don't have enough time to go to, I don't know what the number is, 6, 7 meetings. But I do have enough time to make sure I can get to 2 meetings, especially on a consistent basis. So if we have our primary departments on the first Tuesday and and then the secondary departments, and then on the third Tuesday, we have the primary departments and the secondary, so everybody has the time to speak twice a month if they need it. But, they have the bulk of their agenda on their primary time. I think that it's good. There's so many times that I'm passing stuff from the committee to the council, and it just gets voted through because nobody really had time to listen to the committee or really study the agenda. So there's so many things that aren't being vetted out as well as they should be. And again, I don't have time to go and listen to, and be at all the different committee meetings throughout the month. So this is mainstreaming it to 2 meetings, and they're going to be longer sometimes, but I think I'm happy to do that than to try to figure out 8 meetings per month or whatever it comes to. And then it also eliminates a little bit, I'm not saying anybody does it, but there is the potential to do gatekeeping, and I would like to eliminate that gatekeeping as much as possible, to say this is a group of 8 and sometimes 9 that are all participating in every decision that's being made. And I think that this system would help us do that to a greater degree. So I'm in support of going to the 2 council meetings per month and doing away with the standing committee meetings.
Jake?
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm in favor as well. I'm obviously not a voting member of this committee, but I believe this can be pulled out at the common council meeting and we can vote on it there. So how long it wants to get kicked out, I mean, I'm going to be bringing it and supporting it at the common council meeting. I think some things that should be excluded from the rules, I don't think we should have a hard set HR, public works, and finance, because that's still month to month on things like finance and property. So if that was just left out and we just kind of left that as that's how we'll schedule it, but if there's other things, we'll include them, I think that would be beneficial, because otherwise we're again doing basically putting the month to month out. If we just take up finance once a month, and if we just take up HR and public work once a month. So if we just have 2 common council meetings and we structure them that way, the mayor sets the agenda. He can decide to put HR and public works on the first meeting and finance and property on the second, but if there's something that carries over, he can then put the public works or HR on there. So I think just excluding that part would be more beneficial to that, and it would help us keep things moving faster.
Tom?
Yeah. I would, I guess, sure need more information, I think, on how this is going to would work if that's the route we would go to. I'm probably against that right now to change to that without that having, I think, more setup. But I think what I hope is not being missed is that whoever, referrals and whatever are going to be made like they were, or somebody's going to call the mayor up from complaining about something, or somehow it gets put on an agenda, or however it's going to be, but that the public doesn't get left out of this. We have to, to streamline it, maybe it's for us or whatever, but it's for the thing is that we're here to serve the public, and that they have the chance to, whoever they are, if we agree with them or not, that they have a chance to come and appear in this before, now it's a committee. If it would be changed before the council, that they would have a chance to come and appear and plead their case and talk about it. And there have been some committee meetings that have gone a long time, and I somewhat expect that that's how some councils are going to be. There's going to be a lot of discussion, or there should be anyway. I hope that we're not stifling that by doing this. And I haven't researched it, so I don't know who does this in the way that I'm looking at this anyway, is that all other governments have committees, and that is to go through to start the process and to go through that, and then it gets presented to the council. I mean, there's councils, there are 10 people, which I think we should be, but they have 5 on a committee where it gets discussed to a big degree. Then it comes to the council. There are so these communities nearby here have 5-member committees that go through all of this. And so to some degree, I think we're going backwards from the way that I think we should go. I don't have a problem, and one of the reasons years ago was that that we tried to get the committees all on one night, or the main committees, standing committees, is that gave people to, if there was an item on a committee that they didn't have to come another night. They could be there that night. If it started with, I think years ago was HR was first, if somebody wanted to come, that there was something on HR to appear before, they could, but then there was finance. And if you weren't on either one of the committees, you didn't have to sit around if you didn't want to through all of it, but you could appear at items that were of most interest to you, that you thought that you really wanted to be there. And then if you're on Public Works, that was at the end. We haven't done it for a long time, but Dennis knows is that way back when we used to have be a maintenance way committee, that was called at that point in time, was that we actually somewhat had it broken down into 2 sections. Committee night is that depending if the items were there, we didn't make them up, but if there was 3 or 4 items or whatever, that the committee actually went out and viewed the site. Not just taking it from what is told to them, but actually we actually had meetings on the site, which I thought was very beneficial, but some of them lasted a long time too. And Dennis knows that we had some traveling road shows that the weather might have started out good, but it was sure changed by the time we were done at 10 o'clock, still out there. So that was one of the reasons that we tried that, and I guess I was probably a big head of that at that time, was to get those committee meetings all on one night so people could come at one night, but you didn't have to sit there if you didn't want to. I just have I don't know if it's a fear or whatever, but somewhat without these committees, even though things will be talked about in some way or another, that somehow we're leaving the public out of this. And are we looking more at making ourselves more convenient, Or are we looking at maybe a way to make it more convenient for our public that we are working for? So it's just, somehow, we have to make the time to attend the meetings that we have to. There's I think if you would other communities, you'll find they have more standing committees even, per se, if that's what they call them, that council members are a member of. We have a thing that we have a lot of our committees are pretty much all citizen committees. These, not the standing ones. Your Park and Rec and that. But you at other communities, a lot of those are made up of the council members. So I just hope that we're not taking away from what we have and that we're looking at to make it better for the citizens to do. I think there are times that that we have maybe didn't take an action on a certain issue, a sign that was higher than what it was supposed to be by the ordinance and that, and people didn't like it. I'll have to say I've opposed it a couple of them. So I just that if you're not getting any, if you're debating it or whatever, and it's just not there to make the decision that night, the good decision would be is that you do postpone it, that you do hold it over and come back in a month or whenever it is, or 2 weeks. Sometimes the questions get left unanswered and we make a decision. And sometimes to hold something over would be that question or questions can get answered in between time or by the time that we'd meet again. So anyway, that's not to just keep going on and on. I just have I think it's a drastic change, and I just hope that it's the streamlining is not per se to that we have to spend less time, but that we don't forget the public out there that we're serving. So thanks, Jay.
I guess I'm just not quite sure, like, the public are always welcome. We open the floor to them to speak, or you're saying we don't have to, but at any of our council meetings, we allow people to speak. So they'd have the chance twice a month to join us at the meetings and speak, which, I hope more and more people do come and speak. That's good. And then I think, I'm not sure if we're on the same page or not, Jake, with all the departments would be on every agenda every 2 weeks. I guess the option is to just make, some of them with the bulk of their items on the first Tuesday and the other, or two with the bulk of their items, just to try to, contain it. But I suppose if people are bringing items every 2 weeks, then it'll shorten that up anyways. So, but again, I think if we have to stay late, we stay late. I'd rather dig in and hear everything and be able to make better decisions than I feel like I'm making now, and do that twice a month. Thank you.
Mayor?
Tom remembers, and I don't know if Scott was around when we did have 2 council meetings a month, and plus committees, and like Tom brought up, that it wasn't very efficient. One of those meetings was pretty light on the agenda. And I agree, it was a good idea. I think it was a great idea to try to hold all the committees, but then usually Public Works started an hour or two late because of finance, and so I think that was probably not good for the community. I kind of like this concept, and I guess there's another layer of protection in there, is that ordinances, if they're not unanimous, takes 2 reading. So if there is a concern on an ordinance, it will go to the next meeting. So there's kind of a layer of protection that things won't be kind of rushed through. If there's, I think of that sign that you brought up, Tom, that, that dragged on for a couple of months. I don't know if that was the most efficient, but at least if there's a second reading, it will be done in 2 weeks versus another month, which for me, my goal, or at least the thought is, sitting here thinking about this, is that I think it'll make us a little more efficient, and which will make us more effective. Thank you.
Any other comments? I guess, what are the, oh, Patrick, sorry.
So I just wanted to reiterate what Matt had said. I consider myself a pretty hardworking member of the council, and I do try to make it to everything, every meeting that there is. Sometimes I can make it, sometimes I can't. I watch it on YouTube, and then I have questions. Those questions are then brought before council, and it makes council a lot longer because you're rehashing everything that's already went on in committee. So this way, it's basically like 2 committee of the whole meetings or whatever, but they're just 2 council meetings where everybody gets a say, everybody hears the same thing, and everybody gets a vote. Everybody can, on any subject that is brought before us. And I mean, to me, I think if we just did a trial run, I do know other communities that have done this, and they haven't gone back. It works out so much better for them. So I think we should at least give it a try, or a trial run, and then go from there. This was a referral that was made nearly 7 months ago. And why hasn't it been heard until now? I mean, if we had this system set up, this would have been heard 6 months ago. So, and there's other things that just take a long time for government to decide. And I think that having a system where if people are building and you're growing your community, you want to have a responsive council. And currently our council is not responsive because it's not structured that way. That's all. Thank you.
Jake?
So with this item, I mean, obviously, no action needs to be taken, but if there was, it would be read into what the action we're looking for, or would it be written up as a proposed ordinance and changed the way we hold meetings that way? Because I'm just looking to see exactly how this is going to be written out, because the couple things I brought up about the agenda and making sure that referrals are always on there to be voted on, to be taken up. And then the fact that, they don't necessarily have to be just HR or Public Works. The mayor would set it that way, but if things from HR that were important needed to carry over, they would. So I just want to make sure what the language is, and when it comes to council and we vote on it, I can read that and have it clarified. So how are we moving forward potentially with this?
So do you want to answer that, or you?
I don't know what you want to do. I mean, do you want to move forward with it and you want to take something to council, or do you want to come back to legislative? I mean, there's a lot that goes into this other than just meeting 2 times a month. There are different committees have different responsibilities. In the grievance procedure, there's HR committee. There's licenses for finance that they just, take final action on. There's, other employee matters for HR. So we're gonna have to go through and tidy up all of that and determine, who's gonna take care of that, or if it's the full council, that's then gonna take up anything that these individual standing committees were doing on their own, kind of as a, special events, for example, that was just finance. And then there was appeal to council. So we probably would need to clean up all of those things to make sure that everything is consistent. So I guess, I guess it's how soon you want this done by, and, whether, and who's going to make the decisions on how those things are handled in terms of those committees. Is it the intent to, that there's just 2 council meetings and so then there isn't going to be this, well, this one is for this and this one's for that? It's, anything goes at each one. There could be a public works or a finance or an HR or a planning, could be on any meeting. Is that kind of what you're thinking? And then, okay, so that's,
Sue?
yep,
I guess my one recommendation would be is that if we could leave budget discussions at a committee of the whole kind of level versus actually a council meeting, because that's where else and somebody can make a motion and I think it's better to work through that in a committee of the whole meeting and bring a final document to council. Just my thoughts.
and yeah, right, and then, like Jake had said, the referral process, what is that going to look like? Do you make referrals at the end of each meeting, that then you have a vote right away, that the council says, yeah, that's good, bring it back, or if they don't have a majority, then it does not come back the next meeting? I actually thought that where this was going, and I think this was talked about at some other time, that it was going to be more like the first meeting is more your committee of the whole or your working council meeting, where you don't have the standing committees anymore, but you have the council and you're going through everything that finance, public works, and then you're, debating everything, and then you're making, then 2 weeks later you come back and then that's the council meeting. You've all had a chance to, say or debate, but then there's still some time, and then you take, most of your action at the second meeting. But I know there's a lot of councils that do it this way. They just have always had 2 council meetings, so I just had I was thinking it was not going to be presented as this, but that's fine.
Just to follow, I don't know if that really, all that was helpful information. I guess the question's still answered of how does this move forward if.
I have a suggestion how we move this forward. So I think we've got a lot of information here. I think there's more questions than answers, and I don't think tonight is the night that we should take action on this. First of all, what we're taking action on is having 2 meetings a month. How are the meetings going to be structured? I think we need a more detailed plan. And Patrick is right. This has dragged on since November, so I would suggest we put some information together, bring it back, and schedule a meeting, our next meeting, before we leave here tonight.
I think if everybody was here, that would help. If we had Ryan
So you think in committee of the whole possibly instead of legislative?
Yeah, Dean and Ryan, if they were here, then everybody's making the decision.
I think that's a discussion we can definitely have, but I don't think we're in a position to make a decision tonight.
Right, but when you say then someone's going to put information together, what is that going to be based on?
Well,
Is someone just supposed to,
as of right
come
now,
up
we've
with-
eliminated the committees and we have 2 meetings a month.
okay, but,
You just went through a whole list of things, Sue, that have to be
Yeah.
done.
so who is going to decide how those things are going to be resolved? That's going to be at your next meeting, or are you going to expect that someone is going to go through and do all that, I imagine, which is fine. Maybe between Jennifer and I will try to clean that up.
Maybe that's the committee of the whole meeting where those items are identified and then the committee can be like, this is how we're going to dispose of this stuff.
Or we can just come up with all these questions and then, but I'm just saying that
Yep.
we can get all those together, and then the next meeting, whether that be committee of the whole, whether it be legislative, then you can check all the boxes, but that's how we want to do that, that's how I want to do that, and then we can draft an ordinance based on that information.
Okay, I think that sounds like a plan.
Yeah, I think more just what are all the things that we have to clean up, and not necessarily, I guess we could make a recommendation on those things, but they'll let us know, and then we can draft the ordinance or from there, I guess. But is this going to be you're thinking this might be just a trial thing? I guess we could just, I mean, generally to change an ordinance, you need an ordinance, but if it's a temporary, well, I have to think about that. But in any event, we have to come up with the language anyway, so.
Just a thought on what because in my mind, the committees are representative of the departments. Departments don't change. We could probably still have the chair, vice chair, and secretary. Is that what it is? Of each committee, make it of the department. That way you still have leadership in each department, right? For when they're on the agenda. Like how much is actually changing if, nothing's really changing.
Everything is
We're just-
changing. We won't have these committees
Yeah.
anymore. You won't have chairs. You'll have 8 aldermen in 2 meetings making decisions together, correct? I don't mean to speak for you.
Oh,
guys.
no, you're definitely right. And the thing is I'm not like 100% set on any one particular way of doing it.
Okay, so that's what I'm
Soup.
saying, because you guys just cut me off.
Sorry.
I'm just saying,
Go
what I'm saying is, we don't know how this looks, so I'm saying, is that, how do we have leadership in each department then? Or are all of us just 8 leaders at one time, or,
I think that's what this proposal is.
Yeah, you'll have an agenda item. I'll read the agenda item and then maybe put out there for discussion.
I guess, I guess that's what you're saying, Sue. It seems to me somewhat cut and dry, but if we are changing that, then it does need to be cleaned up a little bit, because, thank you.
Tom?
Yeah, I think, Sue probably, I think, touched on what she was thinking, maybe this was to be is maybe more of a route to go, where and I think it really behooves us to talk about what we want. And that's for us then to say, this is how it's going to operate. And it'd be for us then to say, Jennifer, is that going to work for you or not? Or Sue, is that going to work for you or not? We want, and I haven't bought in yet, so when I say we, I don't include me, that we want the change, that we should be instituting what the change is. We should be saying what's done, how we want it to operate. The legalese and whatever would go to Sue to make sure it's all done legal. How do we want it to be? How do we want it to operate? Is not for us to send to them and come back and say this is how it's going to operate. We should be saying what it is. There should be a proposal from here of this all laid out. Not giving directions to them, you go back and come up with something. Dream up with something. The proposal should be coming from whoever on the council. This is what it is. And that would get voted on. 2 council meetings is not the worst, is not necessarily the worst thing, but it's somewhat, I think we're taking, if to get rid of the committees, is that we're taking the public out of this somehow. They're going to have to be notified, in advance of what's on the agenda. you're not gonna, on a Tuesday night or whatever, that we're gonna talk about engineering if it hasn't been notified what we're gonna talk about in engineering. We don't just list engineering. We have what the items are. So we don't just bring up, I want to talk about road construction tonight, so settle back. Because I think we're spending way too much money on it. So I really think that, from my feeling anyway, if the changes to be looked at is that members of the council should come up with, here's what their thoughts are and how it would be, put it in writing. Here's how it's going to operate, if it's the first and third Tuesday, if it just goes to that without the committees, this is how it's going to be. This is how an item's going to get to that through the referral process. You can't, if somebody comes up on that Tuesday night and I have a referral, that nothing can be done with that night. That would be at least 2 weeks or a month. And it could be a month. It could be a month and a half. Because obviously we have to give staff time to come up with whatever we want them to come up with for information. So where the concept maybe is worth considering, I think before we make a decision, there has to be, I think, some really fine tuning and actually how this is going to work. And not as we go to institute things. It should be at the start, this is how it's going to be. This is the rules, regulations. If something comes up that's brand new that night, to take action on it, it's probably irresponsible for us to take action. Now, there could be things like a bid opening to go through or something that you don't need maybe that extra time, but again, we used to go through the bid openings at the committees. Bid openings weren't at 11 o'clock or 3 o'clock necessarily in the afternoon, whatever. The bids were actually opened, the envelopes were opened at the committee meeting, all pulled out to go through the paperwork to make sure everything was met. The committee was involved. The bond was posted and everything else, so that was all done at the committee meeting. I think people don't realize that we have streamlined a lot over the years of how things were done. And now it seems to be more of the convenience for us of what to do. Yet the idea maybe of 2 meetings a month, I'm not saying that shouldn't be. I'm leery of how we get there. I'm leery what goes on in the committee meetings. I'm leery that doesn't get lost. A finance meeting that would go an hour and a half, I would hope that part of the meeting is going to go an hour and a half. Because you're going to have to listen to the people who wanted what they want. You're taking out that committee that listens to the public of what they want. That's with the referrals that come through. Now, engineering could have what they want, we need to take this up. Well, when we take it up at a committee meeting, a decision is made. Then it also left as it is now is that 2 weeks that somebody was this really the right thing to do? What the committee did? That we have that 2 weeks in there to look at again the decision that was made and maybe things that were said that maybe it resonates, maybe not that Tuesday, but maybe that Friday, all of a sudden, for whatever reason, it hits that, well, that may not be the best way to do that. But we've made that decision already if we do it on that Tuesday. So somewhat, to streamline the process, I'm not against that. But as I said, I think we've streamlined a lot over the course of these years. And if things are maybe not right, it's maybe because maybe what we streamlined wasn't the best streamlining that we did at the point in time. So it's just, somewhere I think I hope it's not. That's I guess in the back of my mind. I don't think we make a decision tonight till the thing is out there to look at. But I think we have to keep in mind that that council meeting is going to be like a committee meeting. That's where we're going to be talking about it. And that's where whoever wants to bring their entourage, maybe 2 people only, but there could be 50 people that want to show up because they really care about something, that they're going to have the time to come and present the case. Us to have the information to read stuff or whatever, that's all fine and good. But it's also just a bunch of words. We don't hear until the meeting usually why somebody or some people for sure want this. We get the here's the referral. Well, that doesn't sound too bad, but when we get to the discussion, there seems to be more questions that come up. And so that's why I think we're just, to look at this is fine, but I think to actually get down how we want it to work, but actually think about, I guess what I'm trying to say is that the people are still going to have their say on things, the community. This isn't just, that's from me. Now, if the intent is that the community wouldn't have their say, I'd like to hear that too, because our citizenry is going to me anyway, should be able to operate and connect as they have in the past. If the intent is that by getting rid of the committees that we are limiting that, and here's what it's going to be, and we're going to make a decision on what this says or whatever, I think that's going a little too far. It may be streamlining, but then I think you get to the point of streamlining took a wrong turn somewhere. So I guess that's probably all I'll say for now, because that I think I don't think we're going to make a decision tonight, but I think the thing has to be written up, what we want, or whoever wants that, and to bring it back and I think plead the case of why to do it. And staff could write up something, I guess, but then again, is that what the input is from the council to set up what they want. Like I said earlier, Sue would be there to say that, well, it passes the legal test and you can do that, or it doesn't, so this is what you're would have to do to get to where you want to be. But we should be telling her what we want. Thanks.
Jake?
Thanks, Jerry. Tom's right in one area. We are the legislative branch. Patrick brought something well written tonight. I think that's can be our working document, and we can just get to work on this in a committee of the whole meeting or whatever's proposed by the chairman, but we can't be afraid to make these changes and move forward ourselves and rely on staff to kind of understand what we're talking about, because this has gotten really convoluted and more complicated than what we're really trying to do. So we have a meeting, we can each bring our thoughts on this and come together with a proposal and vote on it and let it go one way or another. I don't think this needs to be any more complex than it is. Obviously, everybody has their ideas of whether this is good to get rid of committees or not, but let's bring it and let's vote on it and not make it convoluted, complicated, drawn out, all the things we're talking about trying to avoid. I'll make one last comment on leaving the public out of it if they're watching at home. This process, in my opinion, will not leave you out. Oftentimes in those committee meetings, you can come and you can voice your opinion the same you will be able to at these meetings. Whatever happens in those meetings is never finalized until a common council meeting anyways. So a lot of times, if you were coming to committee meetings and you wanted to speak on that issue, you would have to come twice. In this system, you will have to come once. So if you can't make both meetings and you get to speak your piece at a committee meeting, but you don't make it to council, there's potentially 5 members of council who won't hear you, where in this case, all 8 will. So overall, I think we got something to work with. I don't think it's on city staff to try to take in this entire discussion and draw up something on their own. We're the legislative branch. Let's do it. And if it passes, it passes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But this is our duty. And if we want to do this, we'll come together and do it.
Thank you. I guess, Sue, my question is do we have to make a motion? But I would like to request staff to identify what needs to be done, the problems and concerns. I think the second thing is then I'd like to request of President Benjamin that we have a committee of the whole. And at that point, we can start bringing ideas in and start shaping this thing. And I would say in between there, more than likely, you could email or call who's going to be our point person. So I just volunteered you. If you have ideas on how you'd like to see this set up, I think Sue just volunteered to be our point person for this. So, but I think there's the 2 things. If Sue can go through and Jennifer and identify what needs to be done, what changes we'll have to make this happen, and then request that we have a committee of the whole meeting. Is there any other discussion on the issue? If not, let's move on to item number 5. Discuss temporary liquor licenses, alcohol licenses. Oops, sorry, I skipped one. Can we skip ahead to number 5 so we get the 2 folks here that have been patiently waiting? Let's skip on to number 5 then. Discuss temporary alcohol licenses and the requirements under state law as it relates to recent requests for temporary alcohol licenses. So,
So, we talked about this a little bit at one of our last legislative committee meetings. We get quite a few requests for these picnic licenses, and for the most part, it's and this is state law that we need to follow. But for the most part, it's been not too hard to determine whether someone qualifies. So a picnic license is a temporary alcohol license it's supposed to be for a picnic or similar gathering or a meeting of the post or during a fair conducted by the Fair Association or Agricultural Society. So the entities that are able to get a picnic license under state law, you have to be either a bona fide club, a chamber of commerce, a county or local fair association, an agricultural society, a church, lodge, or society that has been in existence for at least 6 months, and a veterans post. So it used to be that the Heart of Wisconsin would ask for these picnic licenses And that was, but the law was changed to include Chamber of Commerce. So, but we would be pretty liberal, I guess, in our interpretation, and we were allowing the Chamber of Commerce before they actually were added into the definition here. But we have some organizations that have requested, and that we've said, we basically have said, well, they're not one of those organizations that are listed. The reason I want to just touch on the Chamber of Commerce, we do allow the Chamber of Commerce to get these picnic licenses because they're specifically listed to be able to do so, and then they actually can go on a premises like a business for a grand opening or some special event that business is having. So that is permissible. That's why you sometimes will see these at at businesses that aren't necessarily qualified to have. They couldn't get the license on their own, but the Chamber of Commerce, as some type of like a business after hours event, can do so. They get the license and then they go to the business. One of our applicants has been the Central Wisconsin Cultural Center, and I wanted to get the opinion of the special agent in charge of all of the alcohol, tobacco licensing of the state of Wisconsin to just see what his thought was, because my concern was that they were asking for a lot of licenses for concerts and so on throughout the year, and I wanted to make sure that we were okay in giving those licenses. Or, in my personal opinion, I thought that it was ambiguous of whether they're actually one of these things, one of these organizations that could get it. And then secondly, are their events that they're having really considered a picnic or a similar gathering that's supposed to be more, not part of your business, but more kind of extraordinary, right? I think is the whole idea of the license. So I'd asked the special agent in charge, and he thought that he was having a hard time determining that they would actually qualify, but he said it's really up to us to decide whether they should be allowed to have a license. I can see, it would be my advice that I think they should be able to get a license, a picnic license, and should qualify kind of under our interpretation of the statute. However, my concern is the amount of licenses, and I don't mean to pick on them, but this could be anybody, that what is the event that you're getting the license for? And I think for an organization like them, I know they have their, they might have a new artist or what do you call those artist exhibits or whatever, a new artist exhibit. And, I guess, might consider that's a kind of a special event. Is that like a grand opening? I don't know. But the concerts and or the entertainment that's there, and then requesting licenses for that, I think that might be, crossing the line. And I think that's part of their, somewhat part of their model is, or an event, an event that they can have it once a month, basically, or even more so. And I don't think that's the type of event that we should be giving a temporary picnic license to. I think you're kind of crossing the line into wanting to become an entertainment venue that has alcohol versus a cultural center that has occasional special events that then you might serve wine with an exhibit, or you have they have a grand opening because they opened another wing on it or what have you. So, and I guess and Jennifer and I have talked about this back and forth quite a bit. And as I said, I think they should be given a license. I think they should be allowed to get a picnic license. But I think we should consider limiting the amount or the events that they can have them for, because any other business could come in and say, well, we want to have music this weekend, so we want to get a picnic license. And I don't think that's I don't think that's the intent behind the picnic license. I think it's supposed to be really something less common, infrequent, not part of a continual series of things. We do this once a month, or we do this twice a month. So I guess those are just some of my thoughts on it. We've kind of gone back and forth on it, and but that would be my recommendation, to maybe, that you can't just continue to have these grand openings or these gatherings, 10 or 12 times a year. So I guess I see that they're here tonight, the Cultural Center. But I guess that's just my feeling on it. Maybe it's 4 or 5 times a year that they have an event, but otherwise you're kind of getting into more of a, needing a permanent license, which they would not be eligible for, because you can't have a license on the same premises as the business that they have. You could do it if you're a hotel, a restaurant. There's a whole bunch of different combinations that you could have with basically a full liquor license. But anyway, so that's kind of what the issue is, and just trying to get feedback on, what your thinking is, because they're going to be the ones making the decisions and approving the licenses. So
I have a couple questions. So, first of all, with our regular liquor licenses, we have a set number of those. Is there an infinite number of these that we could?
no, for the full year-round license, you mean?
For the bars and the restaurants, we can have,
Right, we're at our limit right now.
right, but, so as I'm looking at tomorrow's finance agenda, we've got a request from Ranger Baseball and Women's Softball Association for temporary Class B liquor licenses. Is there a set number of those?
No, if you
No,
don't mind me
that's-
answering. And
those
that's a
aren't temporary.
different, that's a different type of license. That's like the regular alcohol license that a business would apply for. But since they're a seasonal business, they don't have to pay for the entire year. They can get the license just for 6 months. This is a different type of license. The picnic license is for a one-day, couple of hours event, and there's not necessarily a restriction on how many of those we can issue, except they can only include wine on 2 licenses. Did that answer your question?
Yes. Does anybody have any questions? Jake?
The way I heard it is we have 2 options: leave it as is and let them operate as is, or take action on making them or trying to get them to get a permanent liquor license or alcohol license.
No.
Different classes there.
No, that's not correct.
So what? Yeah, I guess clarify for me then. Please.
So they cannot get a full,
Right, that's
license.
what I was going to say. Yeah.
but they can request a temporary or picnic license, which is just for an event, like Jennifer said, 2 hours here, 4 hours here. So, right, so I guess the question is, do they qualify to get a picnic license? And then secondly, if they do, which of their events, if any, qualify to have a picnic, to have a picnic license for? So, they have been requesting picnic licenses, and they've been, they're doing everything legal. We don't have an issue with them. It's just a matter of interpreting the law, and whether they should be, because I think at one point, I think they received quite a few in one year.
Yeah.
So as Sue said, Sue and I have been talking with the Department of Revenue about this, because first of all, are they qualified? That's the very first question that we have to ask. Can they even continue to get this type of license? And I think, I don't want to say there's a gray area, but that's open to interpretation by the Department of Revenue and by the city. So the next question, so that's the first thing. Are they even qualified to get a license, a temporary picnic license for a couple hours. And then the second issue is, if they're having 3 events a month asking for alcohol at those events, now we're bordering on, you really should have a real alcohol license, a regular alcohol license, because the picnic license is only for a couple of events a year, not 2 or 3 a month.
Wait, who's saying that it's only for a couple events a year? Is that written in law?
That's the Department of Revenue sets the rules, okay? So the intent of it is to allow a few events a year, not 2 or 3 a month. That's kind of skirting the law in a way, to not have to have a permanent alcohol license. And that's where we need to be careful here, is that we're not doing something to circumvent the ability for them to actually be able to get a full beer license, which they are not qualified to have by state law.
Right, so that's pretty much what I was saying, so.
Yeah, so can they have a temporary picnic license, and then what is a reasonable number of events per year, I think is where we're going.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Yep.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yep.
I'm not on this committee, but I would say as many as they want. I'm not here to, I don't think we should be policing our community events that these guys put on. I think we should be lucky that we have them. So that's my opinion, and I think it was stated that Sue talked to a state official in regards to this, and nothing's been violated or wrong, so I don't see why we would.
No, actually, their opinion was they weren't sure whether they should even qualify for one, and that also that some of the events would not be considered appropriate for a picnic license.
So are you worrying that when council approves them, we're violating law, or what is?
Well, I'm worried that that the intent of the picnic license, the intent of the picnic license is not to make your business an alcohol entertainment venue or an alcohol venue. That's for the permanent licensees, and we only have a limited number of them. The picnic license is supposed to be, the church picnic, the business opening, if you're saying give them as many as they want, they could apply every day and basically be a year-round bar, right?
Well, if it qualifies under picnic
Well,
license, I think we're being asked as legislative body to put a restriction on them. But we approve every license that comes by, so that that already passes by. I just don't see, it sounds like they're trying to say, well, we're only going to give you 10 a year.
No, I'm saying for those exhibit, maybe a new artist exhibit, but I don't think the weekly or the monthly tunes out on the whatever, or the monthly where the artists, or where you have a band or something, or a guitarist or whatever, if that's every month or twice a month, I don't think that's a special, I don't think you can I don't think you should get a picnic license for that. That's just an ongoing thing that they have going on, and it's not extraordinary enough to get a picnic license for.
So this is more a matter of, is this your legal opinion, or is this law?
It's my legal opinion on the law, yes, and as backed up by the special agent in charge of the.
But they didn't give no direction on where.
Yeah, they did, and I'm going against that direction by saying I think they should get picnic licenses, but I think that we should be judicious in the types of events that we give them for.
So it's not necessarily the number of events, I probably misspoke on that. It's the type of event that it would qualify for. So she's saying an exhibit opening, that's kind of like a grand opening, but just have music on the patio or open mic night, that type of event would not really qualify for a picnic license. That would be more of an entertainment license, which would be the regular beer license, which they're not eligible for. So it's not the number of events, it's the type of event that they're holding.
How about before we wander off too far into this, we've got some representatives here from the Cultural Center. Maybe they can tell us what their thoughts are.
got it. In looking at the types of events that we're doing, it's kind of twofold. So we have exhibits where we have an exhibit opening. We typically have one of those every 6 to 8-ish weeks. So that's a 2-hour event where, depending on what the show is, it's different themes. We have the public come in and view the exhibit. So that's like I said, every 6 weeks, every 8 weeks, depending on how long we're leaving each exhibit up and then bringing in a new one. The other request would be for our Music on the Patio series. And we're having 4 dates, obviously only in the summer because you're not going to do something on the patio in the winter. So that would be an additional 4 licenses. Those are going to be our only requests. Previously, when I was not the director, they did have open mic nights, which occurred more often, and they kept requesting licenses for that. So I understand how the concern came about, but we are limiting it to 4 music on the patio and then 5 exhibit openings. So I don't know if that helps or hurts, but and if anyone has questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Matt, go ahead.
So do you charge for the alcohol? Like, are they purchasing it or are you giving it?
At the exhibit openings, it's with hors d'oeuvres, I guess, so to speak, for a better word, so they're not purchasing it. For Music on the Patio, last year, they included 1 drink ticket with their ticket purchase, and then they were purchasing after that.
And does it make a difference if they're buying it or if it's just,
Even if they're just giving it away, even if it's part of the program, you still have to have a license. They can't just serve alcohol, it's to serve or sell. So it doesn't matter.
is it a play on words if the exhibitor supplies it?
They can't even have alcohol on the property without a license, and they have to buy it from a Wisconsin distributor, alcohol distributor. So the same rules apply, whether they include it as part of the package or whether they charge for it. It's the same rules.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Committee, your thoughts?
So the question on the table is, do we allow them 10 picnic licenses per year?
Again, it's not the number of events. They could come back next year and only do 1 event that is the Tunes on the Patio, or they could come back with 16. So it's not the number, it's the type of event. So
I understand
the
what you're saying.
exhibit opening, I think Sue was saying the exhibit openings probably would be the event that would be the most likely to be approved by the state. Correct, Sue?
Right. And and these are still going to have to come, I guess we were just looking for some direction on, so that we could advise them, instead of bringing all these licenses in, what you guys were thinking. So I think if you give us some direct, or give all of us some direction on that, these licenses are still going to have to come to you for approval. And I think there's one tomorrow night. Right.
There is one tomorrow night,
Yeah,
yes.
so I think, and as Jennifer said, I don't think it's the number. I think, just being, as the licenses come in, just being consistent with, your approval of them and having an understanding of what's appropriate and what's not, so.
And it's
So
not
this
just,
is helpful if you.
and that
go back.
decision is not just for this particular business. This would be any business that, would, a similar type of business that would want to do the same thing. So just kind of getting your feedback on what that looks like.
Right, because that that's kind of the precedence we're trying to get at. Is
Right.
if we're going to do this, what does it look like?
Right.
And so that we have some platform for the rest of the businesses.
And that's part of why I'm cautioning any, I think if there's a state law, we obviously don't want to break it. But if we're talking about, and they've been used as an example a lot, but if we're talking about street dances where temporary alcohol licenses are applied for, there's different bans. I mean, Assumption does something every year. So if this guidance is put in place with the idea that maybe some licenses are being taken out too much, but we're eliminating a lot of those events that are for charity. And if I'm still trying to figure out, if there's a gray area and we're giving the guidance here, is anything violating state law by us approving these one by one? Do we get to a certain amount and we're violating the law, or are we not? But when we approve these, and we have done in the past, so I don't think that question's been answered.
Well, I think when you get, I mean, there's two issues. There's the type of event, and then there's, you do have to look at the volume of them too. I mean, if they were doing one band thing one time a year, okay, well that's they're honoring whatever. One time a year, that's different than the open mic night 3 times a month, right? So I don't think you can, you kind of do look at it as, what is the intent? The intent is not to have multiple events that aren't really special or extraordinary. So to the extent that someone wants to ask for a lot of them, I think that is material to determining whether, it's a special event, right, or if it's extraordinary. So, I mean, I agree. If you say, if you say the music on the patio we're going to approve that, is there anything to keep them from bringing in 32 license requests for music on the patio? And then, that's up to you to decide. But I would say, okay, well, maybe 4 or 5. That's kind of special. That's during the summer. They're not like operating a dance hall or whatever. But maybe 4 or 5 is reasonable. So I guess you'll just have to decide that as they come in.
And that's what's already happening, right?
Yes, I get the applications in and I put them on finance and property. So they are being considered, actually, we're doing them all as a group now. I think the committee asked us to do that instead of every month we get a new one. Can we just consider them all at once? So we've been doing that.
And right, sorry, go ahead, Jay. Sorry.
The mayor was next. Shane?
Yeah, I agree with the art exhibits. I agree 4 or 5 times a summer. This is not a for-profit event for you. You're not running it as a business. You're offering alcoholic refreshments. But I do agree that 3-4 times a month for an open mic is kind of, I've dealt with picnic licenses for many years also, and I think that exceeds the intent of the picnic license, where you're using a picnic license as a regular license, and I think that's where you're crossing the line. But 4 or 5 time event over the summer out on the patio, which is very nice, by the way, that I don't think that's unreasonable in my opinion. But I think when you start that 3-4 times a month, then you're exceeding what a picnic license was designed for. Thank you.
Matt?
So as of right now, they've stated they're looking for 10 for this year. So right now, that's what we're looking at, is approving 10. And are we looking to approve that now, or are we just talking? Okay, that comes at finance and property.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I guess, Sue, if we're not looking to approve, why are we doing this?
Well,
I need to know whether or not, I'm sorry, I jumped in.
yeah,
No, that's
no.
fine.
Yeah, I just need to know what the parameters are so that they're not turning things in and we're going, no, you can't have this. And, when I put it on the Finance and Property Committee agenda, I'm making a recommendation for you to approve it. So I think we're just kind of looking for the discussion to just make sure you're on board with, with what we're talking about. Would you say that's right, Sue?
Right, and the other part of it is that the clerk does have the authority to grant a picnic license in case, let's say it's a last minute thing, and there wasn't enough time for it to get to finance and to council. If it's something that they've been similarly approved in the past, she could go ahead and do that. So that's also helpful to her to maybe get some guidance on, like, how, you know, like the type and how many and so on, so. But no, I think it was more just, I wanted to give you my opinion on it, and I think everyone's on the same, I would have no problem with as requested, and as they come in, then you can approve them as such.
Patrick?
I just have one question. What prevents them from teaming up with an eligible nonprofit, such as a church or some other, like the area business bureau or whatever, and having them sponsor it?
Well, then, first off, the sponsor is the one that's purchasing the alcohol, being responsible for it, getting all the profits for it. You know, that's, so it has really nothing to do with them, I guess. That does happen on occasion where a nonprofit like the Lions Club might come in and do an event somewhere. I'm not saying that that's not permissible. I think it probably could be, but it's not going to be a fundraiser for them, and it's not going to be them getting the alcohol. It's going to, profits, it's going to be the other eligible picnic license, you know, and again, you know, what is the event? I guess it still has to be covered as an event, and the sponsor still would have to be covered as a, you know, eligible entity to get the license or the temporary license.
So the sponsor couldn't donate the proceeds to the cultural
They,
center?
they can't just say, I'm giving you the proceeds. I'm not saying that maybe at some point the sponsor might make a donation to to them, which has nothing to do with how much alcohol they sold and is not a percentage, and right. And I'm sure that happens.
Anybody have anything else? I think we're all in agreement that 10 a year doesn't seem to be unreasonable, so if that's your, is that a consensus? Am I speaking for myself? Well, I guess if we're not going to vote on this, we'll take it from anybody.
I would just say, I mean, they're taking up at this time in committee level every single month, and there's communication. I think did 3 years on finance and property. Anytime something comes forward, the clerk will touch on it and explain if it's out the norm. I don't see why we are having a discussion about, well, I can kind of see the requirements under state law, et cetera, but really it's taken up on a month-by-month basis. If it got out of control, the clerk would have the right to come to the committee and say, hey, this is my opinion, or this is what the law says, and you just wouldn't approve that picnic license because they come each different time. We're not approving a batch right now, correct? This would just be to say, hey, this is kind of the limit.
Not tonight, we're not, no.
You're looking for guidance.
Yeah, make sure that you're in agreement on where we're at with it.
Yeah, I would just,
Yeah.
I think business as usual, you just give feedback on as they come, like, hey, maybe this is turning into a little more than a picnic license. This is their 22nd one this month or something, I don't know. But yeah, otherwise business as usual, I'd say.
Good. Anybody have anything else? Tom?
Yeah. Not to pick on the cultural center, but that is, we've approved more than one at a time. We've approved 4 and 5, 4 anyway. I don't know about 5 or 6, but I'd have to check on back on that, but that's because, so they didn't have to come back each time. So it's not an individual when this comes up, or it was, but then it got to put in more so we could take care of the next 5 months instead of having every month and a half or every month to have to do it. So where to be able to do these things is fine and whatever, but I think there's a key word, I think, that, and Jennifer's really, I think Sue said it too, but Jennifer is qualifying for this. Whoever makes the decision, that should be, do they qualify to get this? Not do we give them 3 or 4, 6, or 10. To start with, it would be, do they qualify to get any? And and with that also, I understand, you know, the different events and the reason that to do that versus, but they're using it, or whoever is using it to, for one, there's not a liquor license to get, but it's avoiding to have to get that liquor license. So I'm not against them being able to, you know, have it, if it's a new exhibit or whatever, 6 weeks or something, but does that qualify as a picnic event? What about a group that meets every month, say, and they have, part of their thing is after the meeting is they have beer that's there, and pop, whatever, but the liquor's there. Technically, are they supposed to have they apply for a temporary permit to do that? I mean, there's several organizations that's what they do. Meet once a month and they have whatever, pop, alcohol, beer, whatever, something to eat maybe, order in the pizzas and that. Are they technically supposed to have a permit,
That dep-
license?
That depends on whether it's open to the public or not. Would you agree, Sue?
Right.
If you're meeting, you three are meeting, well, you're not meeting because that's a walking quorum, but you two and Jay are meeting and you, after you're done meeting, you're just having a private meeting, you decide to have some beers afterwards,
Okay,
that's fine.
okay, private,
Yeah.
okay.
At any time, anything is open to the public, whether you're selling it or giving away, you need a license. And any time, even if you're in private, if you're charging, you need you would need a license.
Any other discussion? Do you have your direction, Jennifer? Thank you.
I do, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think that takes us back to item number 4. Consider limiting the alderpersons to serving 3 or 4 consecutive terms. Patrick, this was you again?
Okay, so this is the one that I really struggled with. The first two basically are no-brainers and should be passed right along. This one, though, honestly, I've struggled with it. I've gone back and forth on it. You guys can discuss it and decide. This was put out before the last election. This was put out in October, after we had talked about if we should add on another alderperson position or not, and what that would look like. Mr. Rayom had said that it would be good for more community involvement and whatnot. So I thought, hey, why not limit terms for more community involvement? So, this referral, was made in October, and subsequently, I'm not sure if this will actually improve community involvement or hinder the growth of the city. I do believe term limits promote democracy as well as bring new ideas and voices to the council. I have, however, found it difficult to find residents who are willing to commit. Although if there was a limit on terms, maybe they would come out of the woodwork. I don't know. On the other hand, how many times have we looked to Tom for answers on certain questions because he's been here so long? So if we pass this item, I'd like to see some sort of staggering built in more than every other year, as to not have a brand new council and nobody knows what's going on year 7 or year 8. I actually should have a lot more to talk about this because I've thought about it forever, and honestly, it's been something that I'm not so sure of. I really do believe in term limits. I don't know exactly. There's not a whole lot of participation, and we all know what happens when there's an open seat and somebody writes in 4 names for themselves, and then you got to deal with them for 2 years. So that's all.
Scott, you want to, we'll let Scott go first, Mayor. Please come up.
Hi, I'm Scott Kellogg. I live at 511 Elm Street. And I do appreciate the conversations tonight of all the meetings you make, because I had to do that too. As a former councilman, I had a concern that we ran every 2 years. I don't believe in term limits. I believe that's the public's responsibility to vote you in or out. But when you run for every 2 years, that was a challenge for districts 1, 3, 5, and 7, because we ran at the same time that the mayor ran. And so I got on the common council with 4 votes, and I ran against a really fine candidate. But when you run on those odd years away from the mayor's election, you have fewer people that show up. You don't get the total representation, in a sense, from your district. So why don't you have the alderman run every 3 years? Because then that second term, you're running on the mayoral votes, and you're going to have more people showing up. Then you'll get better representation from your community. And then if there's a councilman that they don't want on the common council, they'll be voted off. But to come on the common council with 4 votes, I don't think that's really representation of my community. And it's something to think about. Or put the mayor for every 3 years, and you're on every 2 years. I don't know, but it should be the off year. And I think you would get better representation, and then you wouldn't need term limits, and the people would vote a person on and off. So, food for thought.
Very good. Questions? Thank you.
Jake?
Oh. Sorry.
Oh,
Oh, can you get in line here? Thanks, Scott. Mayor?
Yeah, I would agree with Patrick on term limits. If we had people running and contested races all the time, but I don't think term limits are necessarily healthy. And I do agree with Scott, but like county does, they elect their whole board all at one time. That's another option, that mayor and council all run together. The likelihood of 9 people being turned over in one election is probably slim. Or if it does happen, there's some great catastrophe that happened and that's been a detriment to the community, and maybe rightfully so, everybody should be replaced. But if we all are on the same year, then we're all, it's equal footing at that point. Thank you.
Anybody else? Jake, sorry.
No,
Forgot about you.
no, it's all right. I'm in an interesting seat to speak about this. I think a lot of it's been said. I also do support term limits in government. However, when you get into local government, as we noticed in this last election, and this referral was before that, but there was 4 alderman seats up for grabs. 3 ran unopposed. My seat was the only one that had 2 candidates, and or Ryan Austin, sorry, right? And Matt. My apologies, guys. My apologies. But I've just this is my this would without a 1-year gap in there. This is my 5th year on council. I've seen a lot of unopposed races, and this seat in particular that I couldn't run for because I was in a transition between districts 6 and 5. So I've been on the mayoral ballot, not on the mayoral ballot. A person was elected off of some write-ins and information. They worked in a clerk's office. I mean, they know how it works. I'm nothing against that. That's completely legal. But to say that with term limits, if we get into a position where someone who's a great contributor and is continually selected by the people is also not available to this local government, and we just have low participation, I don't know if at this time it's appropriate for that. But in the future, if participation opens up, I think definitely. I mean, everyone should consider it. But yeah, at this time, I can't support it until we get more participation. I only see those guys at the library.
Matt, go ahead.
I would just like to say hopefully by my 4th time around, I know enough to know enough, like how to do this job well. So it is tough. It's a tough job. And I feel like I'm just getting started all over again after, one term. So I think it's, I don't necessarily know if it would be necessary or not. And I agree with Scott that you kind of let the public decide on who they want to be in that seat. So, thank you.
I agree. I think let the voters decide on the term limits. So we don't have to take action on this. I think so. I guess the only thing before we wrap up here tonight is Sue had sent this out, and we do have a list of things that for this body to deal with yet. So I would like to set a meeting date before we leave tonight. Yeah. Yeah, we'll try and get her in 23 yet. Then we won't have to have it.
Are we looking at like a month from now?
I think so.
Okay.
Is that going to be soon enough, Sue? I don't remember what y'all had on that list.
We can do it sooner. I'm up.
That's a great idea. We're working on it right now, Jennifer. What do you have open, and how much time do you need to, what's that? So like June 6th at 5:15 again? Does that work? Oh. the 7th? Is the room available on the 7th? Is the A room available? June 7th, like at 5:15 work for everybody? Yeah. Tom? Well, let's see what we have for, is there court that week? Is the conference room available?
Not on the 7th, but on the 6th, it's available.
Can't do it on the 6th.
Okay. The 8th is available, that,
See, if we had 2 council meetings a month, we wouldn't be having these problems. The 13th? Tom? What about the 12th? The 12th, Sue, is that all right? You want Park and Rec? Nope, we have a conflict. We have a conflict on the 12th with Tom. Yeah, no thanks. Tom, the 1st? Matt? Time? Do we have a time, Matt? That you're the one that probably has a conflict with time. After 4. Okay, so how about 4 o'clock on, or 4:15? 4 o'clock on June 1st? Very good. All right, with that, last item on the agenda is I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned, thank you.